right, everybody. Welcome to the FCA Locker Room, the show where we explore how faith and sports come together to transform lives on and off the field. I'm one of your hosts, Vincenzo Pepe, and today we're joined by professional soccer player Kotaro Umeda. And Kota has played soccer around the world, from the United States to Brazil, Portugal, Hong Kong, beyond. But perhaps the most inspiring part of his story isn't where soccer has taken him. It's how God has faithfully led him through every step of that journey. And so today we'll hear about his testimony, how FCA played a part in his faith during college, and what it looks like to pursue a dream while keeping Christ at the center. So, Coda, welcome to the locker room, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It means a lot to me, brother.
Yeah, we're excited. I know I've gotten to know you a little bit over the past, I don't know, year or so. I think when we got connected, been able to be at a few of the things that you've spoken at, and just speaking with you personally about some things. So I'm excited to learn more today, but I'm really excited for our listeners to just learn more about you, hear your story, and just hear how God's been using you. So I'm excited for this one. This is going to be a good one, everybody. So buckle up for that. But Coda, before we get into like the meat of it all, I like to always just start out with an icebreaker question just to throw you off a little bit. So, nothing too crazy, but so I know you live in Manhattan, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. So, you probably don't have a huge house or anything like that, but if there was one household chore that you'd gladly either give up forever or pay someone to do for the rest of your life, what would that one chore be?
That's a good question. I think, oh man, maybe cleaning.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of OCD, so it's like when I see anything messy, I had to clean it up right away.
Yeah.
But I could get rid of that. I mean, that'd be incredible.
Yeah, man. You ever see those like funny commercials or like memes where it's like the husband's like, "Oh, we have a magic table," and the wife's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Last night," he's like, "I put all the dishes on the table." He's like, "And this morning I woke up and they weren't there anymore." And she's like, "That's because I did it."
I love that. What
Yeah.
about yourself?
If I had to give, man, I go back and forth. I don't know what's harder about being an adult. Is it, I was just having this conversation with my wife last night. Is it having to figure out what you're going to eat every night and like have to cook every single night or whatever it is? Like figuring out, oh, I feel like all we ever eat is like hamburgers, hot dogs, and like grilled chicken. I feel like, or not hot dogs, like tacos. So I was going back and forth between would it be giving up cooking and always just having meals ready for me, or this is going to sound like dumb, but it's always so different. It's a pet peeve of mine that I have to figure out the exact size Tupperware that something's going to go in, like leftovers. And I get so annoyed, like if I pick the wrong one, it's just too big or it's like too little, and then you got to go get a second one. Like that's annoying to me.
I love it. No, that's very unique. I could tell you thought about this.
Yes, yes, that's what happens when you get old. I guess you got to start thinking about these things. So,
That's funny.
well, listen. Now that we've solved this household problem, let's rewind the clock a little bit. Just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, just briefly, because we're going to go through a lot more of your life. But tell us where you grew up, where you're from, and maybe just to give us the inkling of how soccer first became part of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I was born in Tokyo, Japan. My father was a team doctor for Kashiwa Reysol in the J League. So I grew up with no other choice but to play soccer. We were always moving. When I was 2 months old, we moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico. When I was three, we moved back to Tokyo. And then when I was seven, we moved to Cleveland, Ohio, where I would say I spent the majority of my time growing up. When we were constantly moving, I didn't have consistent friends. And so something that kept was consistent, was stable in my life was soccer. And so I grew this fond relationship with the sport, and it's definitely taken me to a lot of places that I'm extremely grateful for.
That's awesome. And what was life like growing up? Moving around a lot. Obviously, you spent most of your time there in Ohio. But what was life growing up with in the Umeda household?
Yeah, for sure. I think for us, we didn't have much money growing up. By the time I was 12 years old, I lived in six different apartments. Um, and so we were consistently moving with little money that we had. I remember some of my early memories was on the weekend just going to play soccer with my brother and my dad. My dad was pretty hard on us when it came to accomplishments in sports, so he always had a high standard for us. And Yeah, I became really close to my parents and my brother because that's all I had growing up. Like I said, we were always moving, so I didn't have friends that were consistent.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, I think that in result helped us create this strong bond that I'm forever grateful for. My parents and my brother are my best friends. I go to them for everything. They've brought me through some of the hardest times of my life and my career. So, um, I feel like that's the beauty and the struggle.
yeah, that's awesome. Good, awesome to hear how your family is kind of just tight knit like that. And oftentimes we hear the opposite, right, with kids when they're growing up, and sometimes there's a just like a struggle in the household, whether it is money or you have those like sense of hey, like our dad's super hard on us to be successful and things like that. Sometimes it drives them apart, but it's awesome to hear how that's something that actually drove you guys together. And I'm sure you guys had hardships and there were trials and tribulations in those relationships, but that's awesome to hear about that piece of it. Um, when did when did you like really get serious about soccer? Like, hey, this is something that like I'm really passionate about, but also to the next level of like this is something I want to pursue.
I think for me, it came when I was 12 years old. My mom was diagnosed with cancer, and I had to quit my club team that I was playing for at that time because we had to pay for our medical bills and we had no money. And I went through a really dark phase, but what kept me straight was my dream. I knew my dream was solely dependent on me. I had to control the controllables and I went to work every day. Made sure my mom was doing all right after I came home from school, grabbed a soccer ball, went straight to the backyard, practiced by myself until it got too dark outside. And that's when I was really became locked in with the grind and fell in love with the process. And that's when I had this dream and this plan to make it to the league. And I didn't have a plan B. I didn't have a second option. I didn't have a second opinion. That's when I began my journey, I
Yeah,
think.
awesome. And what about like faith? Was there was what was your household like when it came to your faith? I know I think you came to faith in Christ a little bit later, but was there a sense of faith in your household? Was there not? Like what did that look like?
Nothing, nothing.
Yeah.
We grew up Buddhist and we would follow the discipline rules of Buddhism. My family, like I said, we're Japanese, so our Japanese culture is very rich in having a high standard when it comes to morals. So that's kind of where I grew in regards to my moral and ethics. But in regards to faith, I had nothing growing up.
Mm.
My mom would talk about God to me a little bit, but I didn't understand. I didn't believe it. And I think that's my humble beginnings when it comes to faith.
Yeah. So when um do you maybe it's a moment that you can remember, if not, maybe it's just like a season, but when did when did faith really enter your life and you started to realize like, hey, there is more to this than I'm realizing and maybe like understand that there is a relationship with Jesus Christ and that like when did your faith really kind of catch fire?
When I was 18 years old, my freshman year at the University of Louisville, it was my first time being away from home, being away from my mom, my dad, and my brother. So it was a really hard time. I was very homesick. I got injured in preseason, so I was going through a very dark and difficult phase. It's one of the hardest encounters I faced early on in my career. And I had a teammate who reached out to me, brought me to an FCA meeting. I had no idea what FCA was.
Hmm.
I didn't even know what FCA meant. But the moment I went there, I saw everyone put their guard down and we're being vulnerable and we're willing to open up, talk about not only their strength but their weakness. And that's when I really started gaining interest and started understanding what a Bible was and what it really tries to teach you.
Yeah, and I know like you went to University of Louisville, and some of the athletes that you told me were in this group. Like these are high profile guys. Who are on the surface when we're watching them on television, right? You think like, hey, they got it all put together, but um, then you probably get to know them, right? And people probably said maybe even said the same about you until they got to know you and get in there and say, hey, like there's more to ourselves than just athletics, and we're all kind of struggling with something. So that's really unique. And so walk us through just I know you didn't have a ton like a it wasn't a long stint that you had with your FCA huddle there at Louisville, but how did that really impact your life on the spiritual side of things?
I think it ignited the fire, started the fire. And
Mm,
I always tell people igniting the fire sometimes is all you need. But for me, from the very get-go, the way they say, "Hey, how are you?" was different. I felt like
Mm,
growing as I got older, a lot of people came up to me and said, "Hey, how are you?" with the intent to just start a conversation, not with the intent to truly understand how I'm doing.
yeah,
But when I met people through FCA, when they looked me in the eyes and asked me how I was doing, I felt like they were actually trying to understand how I was doing. And that love and empathy is something that caught my attention right away, and like I said, ignited the fire.
that's great. Glad to hear that being part of, the organization of FCA and the ministry. Just glad to hear that this is something that's obviously not just happening locally, but this is what the ministry is, right? Coaches and athletes in that way. And so now that you're involved with FCA, your faith is really starting, it's growing, you're learning more, you're discovering more. Um, how would you say that started to change your perspective as an athlete? Maybe just even right there, just in your collegiate career, and then we can talk more about it, your professional career next.
Yeah, I think for me, it didn't impact my athletic career when I was in college because I was just dipping my toes into my faith.
Mm,
And little did I realize that that was one of the biggest mistakes I could have made, in my not only in my career but in my life. But during my athletic career in college, it had no impact. I
yeah.
kept seeing faith and athletic performance as separate fields.
Yeah. I feel like that. I mean, I have a very similar story on that. Like, especially through high school, like that was it. Like I started learning more about God and I understood it, but I was very separate in those things. I compartmentalize them. And I think a lot of our athletes and just people in general kind of do that. It's like, hey, faith is just here on Sunday in this building, and then everything else is different. But it's awesome. Obviously, you found the way to combine it. In college, I tell this story now when I'm working with college athletes. College is such a unique time in our life because we're starting to understand things and we're experiencing things and meeting new people and figuring out what we're going to do and who we are and things like that. And I tell people, like college athletes specifically, like I was literally gambling with my life. Like the things that I was doing, the partying that I was doing, the things that put myself in harm's way, like I just didn't have a care in the world. But I always knew who God was. I knew that He existed. But I always kept saying to myself, well, when I'm done having fun, like then I'll really pursue him, or then I'll get to know God a little bit more. And that, like, now I realize like that was a dangerous thing for me to like say and put out there, because tomorrow was never guaranteed. Like something could have happened to me, and I was literally at that point gambling with my life at any point because who knows what could have happened. And so that's my encouragement for our listeners, if you are in that phase of your life, or even if it's not college, but as you're understanding, and you're going to hear from Kota the rest of his story here in a minute, but um, just want to make that point. Like, as you're understanding, like if seeds are being planted in you by people around you talking about God and faith and relationships, don't just put that on the back burner. Like, dive into that. There's a lot there, and you could probably talk to almost anyone that's a Christian now would say, "Man, I wish I had listened sooner. I wish I had listened earlier." It sounds like that was similar to what you were just saying. And so, walk us through the next couple steps, the next couple seasons of your life. Like, how did your college career end? When did it end? And then what took place next?
Yeah, absolutely. After we played against the University of Pittsburgh. I got a phone call from my father. This was before NIL, so I couldn't talk to any agents or anything. I got a phone call from my father telling me that an organization in Brazil, Joinville Sports Clube, had offered me a professional contract. But they wanted me there the next week. And I literally had 48 hours to decide whether I was going to take it or not. I knew my draft stock in that year's draft was very low. So I knew my likelihood of getting drafted was maybe a lot lower than I had expected. And so I decided to take it. I decided to forego my junior and senior year in the NCAA. I took that opportunity and then I went to a country I've never been to a country where I didn't know anyone, to a country where I didn't speak the language. And that was kind of my first encounter of faith over fear. Um, and yeah, I signed my first professional contract at 20 years old.
So just let's talk about that for a minute. Let's just talk about like the atmosphere and the athletic environment that you were in. What was that like stepping into the professional athletic world I mean, you were still a kid at that point, right?
Yeah, I think for me, my biggest realization was, okay, this is not for fun anymore. This is business.
Mm,
Uh, the way my teammates put food on the table for their families, the way my teammates survive is on the line. And that pressure really got to me, especially my first couple years in the league. My one of my first experiences in a away game in São Paulo, away fans throwing rocks and cussing us out on the bus, walking out into the stadium with over 15,000 people booing us and things like that. And it really is one of those moments like, wow, this is a moment I used to pray for. But at the same time, like when you're the man in the arena, it's scary and it's
mm,
nervous. I was not enjoying it, and the business aspect and the business pressure really got to me.
yeah. And so, how did you handle those things, or lack of handling them, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's both. And for me, I because I had my experience in Brazil, I started leaning more towards scripture, leaning more towards God, and I needed a deeper anchor than just soccer.
Yeah. And so, is this a point in your life where now was your faith starting to grow a little bit more? Did you realize the reliance that you needed God? Like, walk us through what was kind of going on in your life at that moment spiritually.
Yeah, I think for me, my biggest turning point where I became a man was my time in Brazil, especially going there by myself. Like I said, I didn't know anyone. I only had myself to rely on. And I knew at that point I needed something, someone bigger than myself to rely on. And I decided to go to God. Really started diving into scripture. And I think that would slowly became my anchor. And it's something I'm really extremely grateful for.
Hmm. And would you say kind of that season of life when you were in Brazil playing and the struggles and the hardships, right? But then you're starting to build that reliance on God. Was this now a time in your life where you were sort of, how do I put it? I guess just saying like, okay, hey, he's got a plan for me, whatever kind of comes next, like trying to rely on him, or were you still in that struggle of like, hey, this is still me, like I'm the maker of my own destiny here.
I'm the maker of my own destiny. I was
Yeah.
still arrogant. I still had, I know God has a plan, but I had my plan too. And I was
Hmm.
following my plan much harder than I was following God's plan. And I think later on in my career, I got almost, you know, um, punished for it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so walk us what happened next in your career after your time in Brazil there.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was entering my second year in the league, we got a new head coach. During preseason, he pulled me into office, let me know that I wasn't necessarily part of his plan, meaning in sports, you're not going to be starting. You're not gonna be maybe one of our go-to guys. And for me, I wanted to get playing time. I needed playing time. So um, I talked to my agent. We decided to take an offer from Portugal. So I transferred. I got traded to a team in Portugal. Um, and at that time, I think I'm 21 years old. And then we entered into the COVID season. After the half season, they decided to let me go when I was in Portugal. But like I said, I'm always willing to put in the work. And I was picked up by a different organization in the same league. Um, and it was during COVID, like I said, so I couldn't really work out with my trainer in that off season. I had to
Hmm.
do a lot of work by myself, and it brought me back a lot of memories from when I was 12 years old and I had to do work by myself because my mom was fighting for her life in the house. When that second organization, Pevidane, when they signed me, I had turned into this machine. I was in the best shape of my life. I was running the fastest 40 I ever ran in my life. But I think in order to get that, I had taken my body beyond its limits, and I ended up getting injured. Um, the organization let me recover in time, and when I came back, I got re-injured. Um, and that's when I was really hurt, broken physically. And that night, the team decided to release me, let me go. And at that point, I hit rock bottom. My entire identity was in soccer. And so I decided to commit suicide that
Hmm.
night, September 20th, 2020.
And what happened? What happens next? Because obviously you're here with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in that exact moment, my phone started ringing. It was a text from my brother saying, "What are you doing?" 11:26 p.m. I still remember like it was yesterday. And in that moment, now looking back, it wasn't a text from my brother, it was a text from God.
Hmm.
Uh, and that single text really saved my life. Next morning, I woke up to 27 sleeping pills on the floor scattered along. Um, but I went through this depression phase. I was taking my opportunity for granted. I was one of less than 1,000 players to be in the league. Yeah, I was so miserable. I was supposed to be living my childhood dream, but I hated every moment. And then 8 months later, I started seeing a sports psychologist that changed my life. And when I say changed my life, we shifted my identity from being an athlete to being a Christian. That's when I fully immersed myself into my faith.
That's awesome, and grateful for your brother. Grateful for those people that you get to be here today with us, and that one text. And um, I wanna take a moment and just kind of speak into that for a second. If we have listeners here struggling with these things, these worldly things, right? Like at the end of the day, those were worldly things that you were struggling with, obviously, and so um, we want to let you guys know, like sometimes God is taking those moments, no matter how hard they are, no matter the walls that you're hitting, no matter the struggles that you're going through. Sometimes He puts you in that because, just like Kota here, He had to show him, that hey, without me you're weak, right? But with me you're stronger. And we're going to talk about what Kota's got going on now and what he's been up to recently, and you guys are going to hear how now with God he's so much stronger. But we just want to encourage you in that. And Kota, do you have anything to add to that piece of it before we kind of get on with kind of what you got going on recently?
Yeah, absolutely. I think something I learned is when we say follow God's plan, I think we take it lightly.
Mm,
We don't realize you can't be 80% in. I think when we say we follow God's plan, it's 100% or zero. And I
wow.
think that's something I had to learn and accept. And that's what essentially saved my life. And so whoever's listening, I encourage you to take that to heart.
Yeah. It's a good point. I agree. I think even as Christians, we take it so lightly. We throw that around so often, right? Like, well, it's God's plan. This is God's doing. This is what God has in mind. But it's sometimes a lot harder to live that out, and sometimes we do have to learn the hard way, and things like that. So, walk us through from that time where you're working with the sports psychologist. You're fully giving your life to Christ at this point now. You've made that decision. Walk us through from that to kind of today. Where are you at today, and what have you been doing recently?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that single encounter changed my perspective, changed the way I saw life, and it was just, God, I'm thankful to be here. The moment my 2 feet hit the floor in the morning, I'm gonna go to work for you. And so any organization I represented after that, any championship I had the opportunity of winning or losing, it didn't really matter because I knew it wasn't about me. It was about God. And it was all of this is even possible in the first place because of God. And that shift in mindset really changed how I saw life.
Hmm,
Went on
it's
to
great.
retire last year because I wanted to pursue my dream. And my dream was to always be a motivational speaker. It's something that saved my life when I was 16 years old. When I was selling drugs in Cleveland, Ohio, it's what really took me away from the streets and helped me focus on my path and my career. And so ever since I was done playing, I knew that was a business or a career I wanted to go after. And I've been, 10 toes down on it. And I've been grinding each and every day to be the greatest that I could ever be.
Hmm. Well, we've had you at a couple of our FCA events here locally in New York, but I know you've also done some back home in Ohio with FCA and other areas there. So, um, what? So I know you just kind of touched on what I guess motivates you to do the motivational speaking, right? So when you're asked to do these engagements and these speaking opportunities, just curious, like how do you go about preparing for those? Like, what's the mindset that you have to be in? What's the message that you're trying to share? I'm sure obviously it's different depending on who you're speaking to some degree and maybe what they're looking for, but what does that preparation look like, and what is the message that if there is somewhat of a consistent message that you're trying to give when you are at these engagements?
Yeah, for me, my biggest thing is authenticity. I never go up on stage being someone that I'm not. And I speak from the heart, and I don't have a script. Even this podcast, you asked me, you kindly were about to send me a script, but I told you right away, like, I don't want a script.
Yeah.
I think that's what keeps it real for me. Like exactly what you said, depending on engagement, there's a lot of themes and topics that they want me to cover. And I want to first and foremost make sure I feel comfortable enough to be able to execute on that topic. But when I feel ready, my prep is I have to rehearse it at least 21 times prior. So usually if you do once a day, it's like 3 weeks prior.
Hmm.
But when I go up on stage, I have the main topics that I want to talk about, but between that is straight free flow. And I feel like I'm able to execute because I speak from the heart. Like I just said, none of it is scripted. It is rehearsed, but it's not scripted, meaning how I feel on the stage is who I truly am.
Mm. Yeah, and I know when you came to our Westchester launch night, if you will, our kickoff for FCA in Westchester County, we got to hear you speak for, I don't know, it wasn't super long, maybe 10, 15 minutes or so. You shared your story and the impact that FCA had on you and some of the decisions that you had made in life and where your faith really brought you. And uh, it was awesome to just hear exactly what you just said, authenticity. I mean, you actually are probably the first guest that I've had on here who I say, hey, I'm going to send an outline of kind of the topics. And you're like, no, I'm good. I don't want that. So I appreciate that, man, because like you're just like what you guys are hearing right now really is raw. Like he wasn't prepared for any of these things. It's just his life, and he's just sharing that with you, and you definitely get that when you feel that when Kota's speaking in the room with you guys, and so I definitely encourage you guys if you hear that he's speaking at anything near you or you're looking for someone, he's definitely the guy for that. And we're going to talk more about how they could tap into you with those things here in a second. But
I
what
appreciate it.
what's maybe some things that you're looking forward to maybe here in the near future with kind of where God's planted you and things like that? Are there some things on your horizon you're like, man, I'm really excited about this that's going to be happening or going on?
Yeah, I think for me, I just really try my best to dive into scripture more, try to strengthen my faith more. Um, exactly what you said. I definitely try to put God as my anchor, but we get swayed off track a lot. And so when I find myself swaying off track, I find myself reading myself back in. And I love that for me. And I think that's what true love is. But I just want to continue to be a messenger of him. I want to try my hardest, try my best to be remembered as a kind guy that was a reflection of his message. Um, and every room I walk into, every person I encounter, that's something I try to carry. And so whether it is through motivational speaking, whether it's through any other avenue, that's something I always try to remind myself to be a reflection of his word. Um, but like I said, when it comes to my work on this earth and my time on this earth, I want to be the best motivational speaker I could ever be.
Mm, love that. That's good stuff. It starts where when no one's watching, right? Like we always tell our athletes that, like I know as a coach, I'm always telling them like, hey, it starts before you step onto that field, before the lights come on, all those things. But that's not just for athletics, that's for life. Like, hey, are you are you gearing up for the battle ahead with God? Are you truly putting on that armor every day? Are you growing in your relationship with Him? Are you being convicted of things? Are you allowing the Spirit to change you and dictate your steps and things like that? And it sounds like that's what you are doing behind closed doors. And it's the fruit that you're producing right now is evident of that, and we're excited to see because I feel like when you and I first got connected, you were still kind of in the at the beginning stages of all this motivational speaking and things like that, and so now we've gotten to see you go on to a few different things, and the sky's the limit. But I'm excited to kind of see you grow into all those things here pretty quickly. I do believe that for you, and so. Um, how about this? How about if we have a young athlete listening to us today that was in your shoes maybe, right? 12 years old, wants to chase their dream of being a professional athlete, wants to travel the world, wants to play internationally. I mean, we got the World Cup going on right now, right? And so how many young athletes are looking up to those players and saying, "Hey, I want to be on that stage one day." What's something you would tell them that either you hope they remember from your story, or just maybe something that you would want them to understand before they really go out and chase that dream?
To make it in sports, you have to be psychotic in your craft, meaning you
Mm,
have to be obsessed, you have to be crazy, you have to almost be a narcissist to make it in athletics if you want to make it to the professional level. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to sacrifice so many things in my life just to be 1% closer to my dream of making to the league. But to be successful in life, you have to do that while you detach your emotions from the process and place your emotions and trust in God.
mm, that's good. I like that. I like that a lot. So, Coda, if someone wants to follow along with what you got going on, where can they find out some more information of you or follow along with your journey?
No, I appreciate it. For me, I try to be active as I can on social media, Instagram, YouTube, my website, kotaroumeda.com. Some of my books are available there. But um, one thing I try to promise is whoever contacts me about advice, I try to get back to them within 48 hours.
Mm.
You know, it's something I needed when I was growing up, so I try to kind of be a reflection of that. And so I appreciate you guys a lot.
Yeah, that's great. We'll put the link to your website in the description of this episode so people can check you out there. And obviously we'll tag in some of these things on social media. But man, I really appreciate you being on here today, Coda, and just like you said, being authentic, sharing your story. Sometimes sometimes people get ashamed and like timid about sharing their stories um, the darkness that they had to go through at one point because they feel like people are going to judge them, and people will, people will. But at the end of the day, like that's what's giving you strength. Like you're not that person anymore. You know what I mean? Like you're not that 16-year-old on the streets anymore. You're not that person that was contemplating whether you wanted to live or not anymore. Like you're not that person, and I think that's that is what we should be doing more as Christians. Like your testimony is the strongest like platform that you have because no one can take that from you. It's yours. It's personal. It's emotional, and people really hear that. And then just hearing some of the details that I wasn't aware of, getting to know you, like just hearing those things, you can hear it. And so I appreciate you being willing to share those things. And hopefully, I think it's going to be an encouragement to our listeners. Hey, like if you're going through those times, people like take it from Coda, take it from myself. You're going through those times, but that's not what defines you. God defines you as a son or a daughter of Him, and that's something that should be able to sustain us. And we'd love to have a deeper conversation with you guys. And obviously, you heard how FCA kind of was a platform that really sparked Coda's faith journey. And so, if you are a young athlete, high school, college, we would love to get connected with you, find out if there's an FCA happening at your school. If there's not, we would love to touch base with you and see how we can support you in maybe starting one or just giving you the resources to sustain you that way. But yeah, Coda, again, just seriously, man, thank you for um, just helping us realize that sport is a gift, that we get to play that, and that's something that God had allowed you to do. But it's also the lasting purpose behind the game is really our faith, right? Because there is victory beyond the final score on that scoreboard. So thank you for reminding us about all that.
Absolutely not. Thank you for having me. I'm extremely grateful for our brotherhood, the opportunity, and just meeting you in the first place. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for tuning in and listening in. Until next time, compete with excellence, lead with courage, and live for Christ. We'll see you guys next week on the locker room.